We talked about it before. It's been a nice little while since people have been talking about like what's been going on with Sergey Kovalev. I guess it hasn't. It hasn't even been 2 months since Kovalev or Ward versus Kovalev too. People still say it was, it was controversial. We're not getting into the ball punching or if the punch was low. We're going to talk about that. Sergey Kovalev is supposed to return on November the 25th on HBO. And the question is against who? They're talking maybe against Sullivan Barrera. And the thing about Sergey Kovalev now is he has no belts. But the good thing is, he could be made um the mandatory, if he wins against Sullivan Barrera or whoever he fights in November, he could be made the mandatory for Adonis Stevenson. But main events, his promoter and Sergey Kovalev, they're in a tough situation because no matter how you slice it, whether you felt the first fight was a robbery or not, and whether you felt the second fight ended controversially or not, he was stopped in his, when it comes to the negotiation table, right? He was stopped in his last fight. They don't care how, when it comes to like legal litigation and all that shit be going on, in contract negotiations for fights. They don't care how you lost. On paper, you lost your last two fights. So bargaining wise, he really don't have too much to bargain with. So, if he was to fight Adonis Stevenson, and Adonis Stevenson will be fighting Alida Alvarez, he would have to be the ace, have to be the B-side, and, he would have to make sure he goes out there and beat Adonis Stevenson, or if he doesn't, he'll be done. So right now, he's in a rebuilding situation, but also, I really would like to know what's been going on with him internally with his promoter, Main Events, and his manager, Eagles Klimas, and, HBO, and what's going on with that, because there was talks that he was pissed off, with his, with them about his purse. Andre Ward made on paper, what was that, 6.5 million, according to the Nevada State Athletic Commission. And Kovalev was just paid off a commission for a pay-per-view that flopped. It did about 130,000 or so pay-per-view sales. And you boxing fans make me sick. You're scum. This fight had so much build-up and so much animosity to the point where I don't know how this fight failed as a pay-per-view. And I blame you, the hardcore boxing fan, because only 130,000 of you showed up. And I know a lot of you motherfuckers were streaming. You make me sick. For a fight like this, this fight had the most animosity for a fight I've seen. I can't remember when. These fighters genuinely did not like each other. And that fight was hype as shit, both of them. So for the first fight to do better than the second one, it just was, people blame the promoters and everything like that. But at the same time, boxing fans too, have to take the blame for not buying this, a fight of this magnitude. But, water under the bridge now. It's being said that Andre Ward is in talks to fight Tony Bellew. He's going to eventually, sometime soon, possibly vacate his WBO, WBA, and IBF titles. Remember, Adonis Stevenson has a WBC. And it looks like Andre Ward is not going to try to go after Adonis Stevenson to be undisputed. Looks like, that ship has sailed. There's talks that Rock Nation is on their way out of boxing. And that Andre Ward could be signing with Top Rank sometime within the next several months, maybe less. And if you notice, James Prince, the manager of Andre Ward, has already been signing his fighters, not with Rock Nation, by the way, but with Top Rank in Bryant Bye-Bye Jennings and Shakur Stevenson. He's also, James Prince is now working with Bermain Stavern. Bermain Stavern could make that jump to ESPN depending on what's going on with him and his Don King situation. So right now, Sergey Kovalev is in a tough spot. He could be, if Ward moves up, he could, wait it out, fight some good fights over the next year and then be a world champion, depending on the fight by next year, whether it's the IBF, the WBA, or the WBO. But you have to think that Kovalev's marketability has taken a hit, especially since he wasn't humble in defeat, even if you think that he was hit low below the balls. He gassed out. He fought the wrong fight against Ward in the second fight because he was trying to get Ward out of there early. He didn't pace himself, and he gassed out. Also, just as Virgil Hunter said, whether it's true or not, you can't drink, quote-unquote, you can't drink vodka day in and day out and beat Andre Ward. His conditioning was all fucked up. Even with the trainer, controversy with, the talks of John David Jackson trying to jump camp, and, Sergey Kovalev having a reputation of treating his team not with respect, and even saying on the HBO 24/7 that, John David Jackson, he's just basically a coach. I train myself. He's just there to show me shit and sharpen up on shit. So he had a lot of shit going on leading up to that fight, and it's just making you think like, well, where does he really, really, go next? So let's go look at the rankings real quick for the 175-pound division. I'm going to lay it out a little bit for you. By the way, I'm Tissue Controversy. This is Tissue Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. Please subscribe. All the links to my social media are right down below in the description box. So looking at the light heavyweight division, Alida Alvarez, he is the #1 contender for Adonis Stevenson. Alexander Grovesdick is #2 by the WBC. He's fighting Craig Baker or Craig Martin, some Craig guy, on this weekend's card coming up. Right now it's August what the fuck is today's date? The 16th. It's crazy. Today is August the 15th, 2017. So on the 19th, Alexander Grovesdick is fighting on the undercard of Crawford versus Ndangu. Sergey Kovalev is not ranked by the WBC. He's not ranked. Sergey Kovalev is ranked #1 by the WBO, and of course, Andre Ward is the champion. He's ranked #7 by the IBF, #5 by the WBA, and that's rightful. He lost 2 straight fights. And by the WBC, he's not even ranked. Let me go look at the WBC official website. I wonder why he's not ranked by the WBC. But either way, as I said, sometimes, if he plays his cards right, fights the right fights, he can be a mandatory, or he can be a champion again. Because even though the 175-pound division is not necessarily weak, but it has a lot of names that, people don't really know. We're still learning who these names are. You see what I'm saying? We're still learning who these names are. Yeah, he is not ranked. He is still considered on the WBC website. He's still considered the Diamond Championship, the Diamond Champion, right? When you're the Diamond Champion, that's almost like you're the WBC mandatory, a little bit. It's a weird situation. Joe Smith is ranked, but I expect him to be removed from the rankings because not because he lost, but he has a broken jaw, so he's going to be removed because of injury. And I mean it's tough. It's tough for him, especially when you look at the stable, of fighters that when you look at the stable of fighters that Main Events has, and you look at the political landscape, and that they can't go on like demanding shit now that Kovalev has lost 2 straight fights. Despite on how he lost in those fights, they don't care about that. They just look at like, well, listen, hey, we don't give a fuck about that shit. He lost 2 straight fights, on paper. No matter how you slice it. You can't go around saying, well, Pacquiao, when he lost to Marquez, that was a lucky knockdown, lucky knockout. He got knocked the fuck out. I'm Tissue Controversy. This is Tissue Controversy Live. We have no details outside of the fact that he's supposed to return November the 25th, and it's supposed to be on HBO. And expect it for it to be a fight where it's worth something, because Main Events is not in a situation where they can baby Kovalev. He needs to have big, meaningful fights. He is their company, you might as well say. So they can't, have time wasting around having him fighting bullshit fights. He needs to be in fights that are going to get him somewhere in 2018. And I'm sure they're probably working on a plan to make him or have him be world champion again in 2018. Also, could he possibly move, to cruiserweight? He's fought at cruiserweight a good portion of his career up until he started settling himself at 175 pounds and he became a champion. Even before the Bernard Hopkins fight, they were talking about him moving up to cruiserweight. So now when I'm saying cruiserweight, I'm saying that looking at it, he's fought either above the 175-pound limit or fought fighters above that 175-pound limit. So what I'm looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10 fights above the 175-pound division out of 30. Okay, a third out of 33. A third, of his fights at the 100, a little under a third of his fights over that limit. And usually that was at the beginning of his career. And usually fighters at the beginning of their career, they fight above their weight limit, to get adjusted, to the weight. But maybe he could be maybe he could try to test the waters at cruiserweight against some of those guys, who may be in that World Boxing Super Series tournament. How would you like to see him versus Alexander Usyk or Amiris Briedis, or even a Dennis Lieberdev, But anyway, I'm Teach You Controversy. This is Teach You Controversy Live. I cover every single major fight live. I'll links to my social media right down below in the description box. Please subscribe.